Hello, my lovely, and welcome to episode 39 of the Prosperous Yogini Podcast. And this is the first of a three-part series that I have been promising you guys for a while now. One of the most common questions I get in my inbox is, Amy, what advice do you have for someone who is first starting out? Before I get into today's topic, which is how to get better at teaching yoga, I do want to just actually plug my mentorship program. And the reason being, well, one, it's brilliant, transformational, and all of you should join it. But it is just a simple fact, right? That the first 2 years, and in business, but the first 2 years after you've graduated as a trainee teacher, they're super tough. There's so much to learn and take in. And I think that's one of the challenges is like you do your training and you finish and you're like, whoa, where on earth do I start? This is just, it feels overwhelming, right? And one of the best things you can do to ensure your success, to be honest, is join my mentorship program. Because I tell you what people will do is they go and do more training. And I'll talk a little bit about training procrastination at the end of this episode as well. But you think, I'm not ready to teach yet, so I'll go and do this training course. And I'm not ready to teach yet, so I'll go and do this training course. I have met so many teachers who haven't started teaching yet, who've been doing back-to-back training courses, not earning any money from their knowledge or their gifts, not helping people, sharing their knowledge and gifts with the world, waiting, well, I've just got to do this course and I'm going to feel ready. And I'm just going to do this course and I'm going to feel ready. And actually what you need to do, which is today's topic, to get better at teaching, is to get out there. And it's really hard to get out there by yourself. Whereas if you come into my mentorship program, come and invest in my mentorship program, plus it does give you training hours if that's what you want to accumulate and count. And I will get you teaching. I will get you teaching. There are a good many people in my mentorship program who joined me as newly qualified teachers, and they've got classes running. We're now moving into workshops. We've been audience building, getting established on social media, setting up websites, setting up booking systems. It is endless and overwhelming. And I just, first of all, want to say that to you, for those of you that are newly qualified or graduating soon, or, you know, in your first few years of being a teacher, or maybe you still feel that and you've been teaching longer. Honestly, there are no hard and fast rules here. We are all in our own lane. We are all doing this in our own way, our own speed. And I think that is well worth remembering, because one of the things that we do to ourselves in a form of self-sabotage is say, well, by here I should be this, and by here I should be this, and this teacher who graduated with me is doing this, and their circumstances, their personal circumstances, their previous experiences will be completely different to you. So you have to honor your own energy. You have to honor who you are. You have to just be in your own lane, knowing that that is all you need. You are more than enough. As I say about the human form, full stop, we are all imperfectly perfect. But today's topic is primarily about teaching. How do I become a better teacher? And you might be like, right, what pens to the ready, what training courses is Amy going to recommend? And this isn't, and I'm a trainer, right? You can train with me yin yoga, pregnancy and postnatal yoga. Okay. And I'd love to work with you and train with you, right? There's nothing wrong with going on additional training courses, and absolutely they can help to advance your teaching skills. All right. But you've got to check in with the energy behind why you're doing that training course. So if it's like, I'm not good enough yet, I'm not ready to go out and teach, I need to go and do more training, I would just be cautious about any decisions you make in that mindset. If it's like, I'm very passionate about helping women pre and postnatally, I want to add that into my teaching schedule, I want to specialize in creating a business for mums, bumps and little ones, I'm like, come on in, let's do a bit more training together. Because ultimately, let's for now separate, although I'm not a huge fan of separation, let's just separate yoga and teaching. Okay, you may or may not know this about me, but I actually have an educational background. So quick little history of Amy. I went to music college and I trained to be an orchestral viola player. Sorry if you've heard this story already, I'll keep it brief. And really into my second year, I realized that, if I'm totally hand on heart, I wasn't a good enough musician. But more so than that, I got incredibly nervous when I performed. Like, I got the shakes. And to get through my degree, I had to take beta blockers in order to pass my final exam. I had to do a solo performance, and the shaking was crippling my ability to play. And the only way I could get around this was to take beta blockers, which I knew at the tender age of 21, that was no way to forge a career path. And I went straight from music college into education. And I trained to be a secondary school music teacher, and I started teaching. So when did I start teaching? Was it 2001, maybe 2000? I don't know. I'm getting so old now. But I was 21, turning 22, and I started teaching in secondary school education. And that was over in Bristol. And then I did that for a few years, moved down to Cornwall, got a job as a head of music, and did that for a few years. And then I actually got an additional job in setting up the first PGCE secondary school music course in Cornwall with Cornwall College. So here I am. I'm a head of music, head of faculty maybe, and I also set up in my late 20s a PGC training course. And I did that for it all gets a bit blurry, but I did that for about 5 or 6 years. So in total I was teaching in education for 12 years, and for half of that I was also involved in training teachers. So I've got this massive educational training background. It's one of the reasons why I am here where I am today. And I want you to just also, yoga teachers are very, very good at discounting all other qualifications and life experiences, right? And I'm like, they all culminate in you and where you are now. And, there's no coincidence that here I am, in my mid 40s, having been a yoga teacher since 2009. So there's a bit of a crossover. I was a school teacher and a yoga teacher for some time. Here I am, 2023, with a large training business. I've leaned into what I love, leaned into my zone of genius, creating curriculums, creating assessment strategies that guide people towards an outcome in terms of, here I take them from point A to point B. They're not a teacher, they are a yoga teacher. They aren't trained in yin yoga, they are trained in yin yoga. Now I also have a mentoring program, mentoring teachers, because very much when I was training music teachers, that is all part of it. You learn the skill of the subject you're teaching, you learn that skill, but then there's also that mentoring that goes on behind the scenes. So my background very much is in education, teaching and training, and I'm just going to tell you now, okay, I feel like I'm pretty qualified to say this, all right? Teaching is teaching, and I don't really care what the subject is, right? That the teaching is a skill. And of course, there'll be skills specific to that subject, right? But when people say, I want to get better at teaching yoga, Amy, what do I need to do? Okay, it's a skill and you need to go and practice it. It is as black and white as that. It's as black and white as that. All right. The only way you improve a skill is to go out and practice it. So those of you that listened to last week's episode, which was meant to be a mini-sode, but I got over passionate and talked for about 20 minutes, but we'll brush aside that for a moment. I'm talking about my love of surfing and leaning into what I love. Like, surfing is a skill. And if you were like, after last week's episode, like, I'm going to take up surfing, Amy, right? The only way you're going to get better at surfing is to go out and practice it. The only way you are going to get better as a yoga teacher, my darling, is to go out and practice it. And in that practicing of the skill of teaching, and let's say the skill of teaching yoga for the purposes of the podcast, but I'm going to just say this one more time. Teaching is teaching. I don't care about your subject. It's a skill. Go out and practice it. It really helps us, by the way, that, because I think we can get very entangled into yoga and yoga teaching. And I'm like, look, yoga is important. Of course, I'm deadly passionate about yoga, right? But yoga is important, but it's not serious, right? It's not life or death, right? And sometimes I will say to my trainee teachers, those that are in my mentoring program, It's just a yoga class. And I don't mean that to belittle the importance of the class, but how often do we make this thing seem so big and so important and create so much stress? How much sympathetic nervous system charge are we creating in our bodies over a yoga class, right? So stepping back and just thinking that I'm just going out and teaching yoga. This is important, right? Of course it's important. I'm deeply passionate about this subject. I want to help people, but I am just going out and teaching yoga, right? And that can really help to just let things flow. And then in terms of the process of practicing the skill of teaching, for me, it's in 3 parts. We go out and practice it. We do the job. We go and teach the class. All right. We then reflect. And when in my training days would be like a reflective practitioner, you would always want to be a reflective practitioner. And a reflective practitioner is not someone who goes, oh, that was shit. You know what I mean? Like, and by the way, I have so done that. Or, oh my God, I'm such a terrible teacher. And I did this and I said right instead of left, and I forgot the Sanskrit for that term, and I pronounced that Sanskrit term wrong. And like all my students looked at me weirdly, but they didn't understand what the Sanskrit was anyway. So then I'm like, why are you using Sanskrit? That's a topic for another day. Okay. Oh, that might have triggered some of you. Sorry as well. Look, I'm gonna have to just qualify that. Sanskrit is a form of language, right? Language when you're teaching when you're out in the process of teaching should be inclusive. I am all for using Sanskrit in the right circumstances. And of course, there's some styles of yoga. Let's just pull out Ashtanga because it's so easy to use as an example. There are some styles of yoga where the Sanskrit is actually part of the chant, part of the practice, part of this moving breath meditation. Yes, Ashtanga is a moving breath meditation. All right. I know it's very physical, but actually behind it. And the Sanskrit is part of the chant. So as you evolve in that practice of Ashtanga yoga, for those of you that do that, Sanskrit becomes part of it. But there are many excellent yoga teachers. Let's take the example of the style of yin yoga that doesn't use Sanskrit, right? There are many outstanding yoga teachers. There are styles of yoga that don't use Sanskrit. Sanskrit is not essential. Okay, Sanskrit is a language, and if the use of language of Sanskrit enhances your teaching, use it. If it doesn't, if it gets in the way of your teaching, if it doesn't mean anything to your students, don't use it. It's the same with anatomy. Like another one of the topics for this podcast one day will be like help and crap at anatomy. Like this comes up a lot. I'm really bad at anatomy. I need to get better at anatomy. I felt like that, and I signed up to look, if you do feel like this and you want to go and train with someone who really knows what they're talking about when it comes to the human body, I thoroughly recommend Gary Carter, Natural Bodies. I literally wouldn't go to anyone else in terms of anatomy. He is at the top of the global game when it comes to understanding fascial and fascial anatomists, right? And I signed up to his 10-month movement fascial anatomy course. And I was like, turned up day one, like, by the end of this 10 months, I will know all the names of the muscles in the body. I will be an anatomy pro, right? By the end of the 10 months, I fully understood how the body worked in reality. Okay. And did I know all the names of the muscles? No, I came away realizing that we'd anatomized these, we'd created them. They were just destinations on the map. There may be a case where it's useful to refer to these terms in our teaching, but does it help if you just say to your students, lengthen through your gastrocnemius, draw down through your serratus anterior? That, for most people, means nothing. Okay, it's not an inclusive language. And this is what I mean by teaching. Okay, teaching is a skill and language is part of that. How do I get better about understanding what language resonates and helps my students? I go out and practice. And then I reflect. A reflective practitioner, not one that goes, oh, blimey, I was shit. One that goes out and thinks, okay, this worked, that worked. What happens if? Do you hear that question? What happens if I tried this? And maybe there is the odd thing, you think that didn't quite work, and that group of people over there were not feeling that at all. I could tell. How could I approach it differently? Okay. Not, oh my God, I'm such a crap teacher. None of that. And this is the challenge with reflective practitioners. One of the other biggest challenges we have as yoga teachers is getting external feedback. when I was a school teacher, I trained to be a teacher. That took a year's training after my degree. And then I had an NQT year, a newly qualified year. And I had someone come and regularly watch me teach, but it didn't just end there. I had, as part of being a teacher, someone would come and watch me teach once a term and give me feedback. That can be very lacking in the yoga world. And if you join my mentorship program, I'm totally happy to give feedback on classes. Just this week, someone that's in my mentorship program sent me a recording of their Zoom class, and I watched and listened to the whole class and gave them some feedback, but positive feedback, constructive feedback, one that is like, this is good, what happens if you try this, and what happens if you refine this. So yeah, if you can find way of getting feedback, that's really useful. And if you are a trainer running training courses, I really do think that you have a duty to consider post-training supporting your graduates with further mentoring and further feedback. Again, a topic for another day. So how do I get better at teaching? The process of practice, the skill of teaching. I go out and practice. I reflect. I'm a reflective practitioner. I observe, I analyze what went well. I always think like the lesson plan is like a hypothesis. Here's my test. If I put these group of shapes together in this sequence, what will be the outcome? I don't know until I go and teach it. I go and teach it, and I might have to change because I have to respond to the energy, the bodies in the room. And then at the end of that class, I'll reflect based on my original hypotheses, my lesson plan, right? God, this is getting technical, eh? I reflect on what went well, and what if I tried this, and what if I tried that. And this is how you keep your teaching alive and exciting. And this is how you keep your teaching alive and exciting after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Yeah. You don't just always, like your practice, you're not always doing the same thing unless you practice Ashtanga yoga. No, I'm joking. Please don't hate on me, Ashtanga yogis. I had my primary series phase. I know. I was talking to my neighbor about this. She loves the Ashtanga primary series. And just sometimes it's great to turn up to your mat and know exactly what to do, right? And then you respond. So next time you go back and teach, you after on your reflections, you try this, you try that. So you go out and practice teaching. At the end of that class, at the end of that process, you reflect. You're a reflective practitioner, a positive reflective practitioner, seeing what went well, seeing where perhaps next time you might try this, next time you might try that, and then you respond. So next time you go out and teach, you repeat, and you just repeat, and you just repeat. And that is the process of practicing a skill. I go out, I want to surf. I go out into waves. I practice. I have a look at what's going wrong. I'm not catching any waves. Oh, I need a bigger board. I go and get a bigger board. I go back out. I practice. My board is bigger. I'm catching waves. Then I'm struggling to pop up. Okay, I need to practice my pop up. It would be useful to practice my pop up. Pop up. That's hard to say. It's useful to practice my pop up on land and then practice it on the sea. I practice it on land. I go back out and I practice. And I'm like, okay, this is actually quite a difficult skill. I need to continue to have failure at getting up in order to have success. All right. And your yoga teaching is the same. The yoga teaching is the same. And what I see happening with some people is they finish their yoga teacher training course and they don't feel ready. All right. And I know most of my graduates have this, I don't feel ready. I think it's a very normal feeling, like with all the will in the world, your foundation yoga teacher training course is exactly that. It's a foundation. It will give you the foundations to go out and get teaching. But you are now on a journey, a lifetime journey of the practice of yoga and the practice of the teaching of yoga. And it's a joyful journey. So welcome to this journey. It's a great one. All right. But you often don't feel ready. And I will really encourage my trainee teachers to get teaching. In fact, on my training course, actually, while I'm talking about this, if you are not a trained yoga teacher and you're thinking of training, I have one starting on the 17th of March. And as I record this podcast, there's one place left. And if you're listening to this and thinking, God, I know someone who should train with Amy, please connect them to me. It will have to be before the 17th of March, and it will have to be if that one place is still remaining, but let's put that plug in there anyway. I encourage my trainee teachers as part of our training program to get teaching, because I know nothing improves teaching than teaching. And totally within the course, we give opportunity for teaching and practice. And this is probably another bit of advice for trainers, guys. But even the most 500-hour in-depth course, there's only a certain amount of time you can devote within that training program for them going out and practicing teaching within the training program. The best thing they can do is go out and practice in between. I will go back to my original story was I went to music college. I went to music college on the viola, right? So I would have my weekly lessons with my viola teacher, but I had to do the practice in between. And when you're training to be a yoga teacher, I really do think you have however it's being arranged, but let's say it's monthly training weekends like I do, you have your monthly training weekends. Well, in between, it would be really useful if you are practicing teaching yoga, if you are taking the knowledge that you've gained from that training weekend and applying it to the skill of teaching yoga and practicing that skill of teaching yoga. So if you're a Yoga Alliance Professionals trainee teacher, I'm not sure about other awarding bodies, and look, there isn't one awarding body better than the other. There isn't one training course better than the other, and actually you don't even need to have an awarding body or be attached to an awarding body. But Yoga Alliance Professionals offer trainee insurance, which allows trainees as a training to teach 2 hours a week. And I encourage all my trainees to take that up when they feel ready, normally about halfway, 2/3 into the course. And what most of them do is gather a group of friends, gather some family members and say, hey, if I taught yoga here in this place or online, please will you come along? And I did a very similar thing. I rented a really small room and it fitted 10 people in it. And I said to 5 friends, pay me £2. So we cover room rental and I'll teach you yoga for an hour while I was training. It was the best thing I ever did. Now, of course, my circumstances, my background was I was already used to teaching, so that didn't seem that scary. And for those of you that don't have that teaching background, look, you gotta just get out and teach. Nothing is ever going to take away the fear than going out and teaching. Then, and once you've graduated, what will happen is I'll wait for this and I'll wait for that. I'll wait for Christmas to be over. I'll wait for Easter to be over. I'll wait until I go back on holiday. I'll wait for this job to finish. I'll wait until I've done this training course, right? Can you hear? I'll wait. This is procrastination, sweetheart. And procrastination is a self-limiting belief, a form of self-sabotage. You will procrastinate until the cows come home. And the end result is you won't get teaching. I will give you a different example. You have just passed your driving test and you give every reason under the sun why you are not going to start driving. And you continue to. I'm going to wait until I got enough money to buy a car, that car. I'm going to wait until the weather gets better. I'm going to wait until the evenings get lighter. I'm going to wait, right? And you don't get driving. And then the time between you passing your test gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And your belief, your memory, your skill of driving gets further away. The same is true once you've trained, once you finish your training. The further away you leave that point, the harder it's going to be to get teaching. And there are so many people that have come to me and said, I trained as a yoga teacher 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I haven't started teaching yet. And I feel like I've forgotten everything. Can you help me? It's like, yeah, come into my mentorship program, right? Or do one of my training courses. But really, really, really want all of you now who haven't and if you found yourself in that position, don't worry, sweetheart. It's never too late to use that qualification, that experience. But for those of you that are newly qualified, coming to the end of your course, or graduated a few months ago, I just want you to stop, to turn me off right now, and make an intention to get one class going. Okay, to go out and practice teaching yoga, one class. And if it's like, I don't feel ready to make this a public class, teach your mates. So I started teaching my mates, right? And then I felt confident in this small group of friends. It was all working out. So then I moved to a bigger venue. My mates still came with me. I probably gave them mates rates. I can't remember, it so long ago. And then I started teaching a public class. And then this public class got established, and then I was ready to expand. And I think this is one thing I really want to say to you, wherever you are in your yoga business, that you feel like you should have a yoga studio with 12 classes. You feel like you should be teaching 8 classes a week. You feel like you should be running 4 classes a week plus weekend workshops, and you've just graduated, right? Get one class nailed. Get that process of going out and teaching a class, right? And the processes around that, get that all nailed, build your community. Because what happens if it's like, well, I want to have an online business and I want to create online courses? I'm like, brilliant. Go out and practice creating online courses. Go out and practice teaching online. Go out and build your community. Because unless you've got a community to sell your online courses to, you can have all the online courses in the world, right? But no one's going to know about them. So you do have to go out, however you want to go out into the world, and build that community. And then you can expand into more classes. And then you can expand into a workshop. Then you can expand into an online offer. Then you can expand into retreats. Honestly, the opportunities are endless, which is so exciting, but it's like one step at a time. You know, if you want to start surfing and go on the world tour, that ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen to me in my lifetime, but it ain't going to happen overnight. It's part of a process that you've got to allow it to unfold at the pace that is right for you. You've got to have some trust that the universe knows what's right for you. And when you start to feel resentment and frustration, when you're trying to make things happen, when you aren't ready, and I see this quite a lot, people start too many classes all at once, and I'm like, okay, so you are trying to get the process of setting up your website, you're trying to get the process of your booking system, your onboarding system, your payment system, you're trying to get the process of marketing, talking to people, letting them know about your classes, right? And you're trying to get X amount of students into these free classes. Well, that's quite a lot, and it'd be much easier for you to get the processes down with one class, right? Get that now, then let it grow, let it expand. Like, going back to last week's podcast, lean into what you love, have a little bit of trust, a little bit of yin feminine energy, trust in the universe guiding you. Oh my God, this is so hard because we want to control things. We want to put things in place that keep us safe, which is why we go, okay, I'm not ready to teach yet. Because if you tell yourself you're not ready to teach yet, of whatever it is you've got to do first before you can get teaching, you are keeping yourself safe. You are keeping yourself safe from the failure of it not working. But you have to understand that you have to go back to that skill of teaching, go out and practice. Some things might go wrong. Like when I teach, I still do things wrong. Okay. Reflect on that, reflect and refine, positive reflective practitioner, respond to that, go back out and teach, and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. It's like a never-ending cycle. Okay. And if you're not subjecting yourself to that cycle, then there is never going to be a class. Okay. And then the frustration arises. I did all this training, I want to be a teacher, but I haven't got teaching. And it gets further and away. And you see how we're our own worst enemy, because we get totally stuck in these things. So, okay, how do I become a better yoga teacher? And this is very much advice for those of you that haven't started teaching, is you simply go out and teach. You have to take action and teach. Okay, recruit friends and family. And this is going to be over I'm going to talk about like this whole building a business. Where do I start when I don't have an audience? We believe we don't have an audience, but I'm pretty sure the majority of you know other people. Okay, you might have a Facebook page, like personal Facebook page. You might have a personal Instagram page. You might have some friends and family member. I bet you know other people, right, that you can talk to and invite to your class. So you're very much at first using what's in front of you. And if you're told that you don't have an audience, okay, I'm going to audience build first of all, fine, but use what you've got in front of you. I was able to coerce a group of 5 mates to come to a yoga class with me. I know lots of people teach friends and family members. Really lovely. One lady, so lovely, had she trained my foundation teacher training course, and she's subsequently gone on to do my yin training. She has a very, very demanding full-time job. And she's in her late 50s, and she's got 2 older children who've left home and have families. And she taught her daughters, both via Zoom, and then they would have these weekends together, yoga. And that's how she got teaching. And when she sends me like her recording teaching practice, I get to see her teaching her daughters, her adult daughters. It literally fills my heart with joy. And I'm like, this is it. You know, the only barrier we put in front of ourselves to take action are the ones we create. And that's why our thoughts become things. That's why we are the creators of our own reality. That's why it can be so hard. But go out and teach. Know that your tribe is out there. Know that it's a skill that you can only get better at. Okay. And we all have off days. I have bad surfs. I have days where I'm like, that was not a good class, right? But compassion, we are human beings and we need to be compassionate to ourselves. I want to just also end on nervous system and what we're doing in this process of going out and teaching and practicing and reflecting and refining, responding, going back out teaching, reflecting, responding, going back out and teaching. That cycle is we're also exposing our nervous system to new experiences. So at first, when we do anything new, our nervous system is just going to go, is this safe? Right? Like, I'm going to go back and using the example of surfing. I'm turned up at a new beach. I don't know this beach, right? The waves are quite big. My nervous system is going to go, is it safe to paddle out here? All right. I don't know. I don't know this beach. I don't know the rocks, the rips. Okay. So I go out and at first I will be a little bit uncertain. I will probably not paddle for waves that I should have paddled for. I probably make the odd mistake, right? But I go back to this beach and I go back to this beach and I keep surfing this beach and I get to know it and I get to trust it. And now my nervous system, sympathetic nervous system response is being turned down, is softening. It's the same when you go out and teach. First time, a few times you go out and teach, you're going to feel so nervous and it's so tiring. It's so exciting. This is nervous system response, nervous energy, excitement. It's not all doom and gloom, by the way. So sympathetic nervous system. It's excitement. It's nerves. And then you go out and teach and nobody died and everyone's smiling and people come back next week and this is exciting. And then you feel very tired because you're like, oh, I get all this energy going on. You're like, how do people go out and teach 8 classes a week? I'm knackered after one. Okay. But what happens is you go out and teach and your nervous system just gets used to the process of teaching. You tell your beautiful brain that actually it's totally safe for me to go out and do this. So then those extreme ends of responses tone down, soften, and then you're like, okay, this is it, then it's easy. Okay, as your business grows, as you evolve, you might then try new things. Every time I go and do something new, I will feel a bit nervous. I had it sort of like recently, just to close. Back in January, most of you probably know, I did a free live launch event called the Profitable Yoga Business Roadmap. This was the first time that I'd really done a live launch event, that I'd put some Facebook ads behind it, that I'd really like intentionally planned this launch. Like the first time I got my act together already on the launching front, if I'm honest, right? And on that first call, I had over 30 people live on the Zoom. Now, I have not had that many people live on a Zoom call before. I've done plenty of coaching calls, plenty of live trainings, just not to that many people. And I was a little bit nervous. But the next day, it was a 3-day. Next day, day 2, I was way less nervous. Day 3, I was in my flow and loving it. Okay. And I was like, after day 3, I was like, well, I should have done day 4 and 5. But after day 1, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get through the end of the week? This is all exposing our nervous system, and you have to do this to get teaching. You have to teach your nervous system, train your nervous system to know that you are perfectly safe doing it. So how do I get better as a yoga teacher? You have to go out and teach, sweetheart. And I know it's not easy. So why don't you head over to amyyoga.com, click on mentoring, or the link is also in these show notes, and pop your name on the wait list for my mentoring program. Doors are reopening on the 1st of June, 2023. The price is the same as it was in January. So that is £695 or 6 payments of £125. That is an incredible price for the level of support that you get from me. It's mind-blowing, by the way. And the price is going up in the autumn. So really get your diary out now. Add your name to the wait list, plus you get a sneak peek into the mentoring program, and put in your diary now. Join Amy's mentoring program 1st of June, okay? So you can get it at its current price. All right, my darlings, I will see you next week for the second of this 3-part series on what to do once you've qualified as a yoga teacher.